Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. All right, well, welcome back to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. My guest today is Eric Vickrey. Eric's back. This is the second time, and Eric's an author and baseball researcher. And on our previous episode, we were talking about his book, The Season of Shattered Dreams, about the 1946 Spokane Indians. And today, we're going to talk about his new book, Before They Were Dodger Blue, Tommy Lasorda and the Greatest Draft Class in Baseball History, which surprisingly is about the 1970 Spokane Indians. I'm starting to see a trend here, just noticing. So, well, you probably, folks, you might be wondering, why we're talking baseball on the Exploring Washington State podcast. Well, this is another example of Spokane's importance. So we're going to talk about the 70 Spokane Indians, but we're going to talk about Tommy Lasorda, who, if you've been alive for the last 50 years, you probably heard that guy's name, saw him on the commercials. He's kind of an icon. He's, and I'll come back to that in a later. But anyway, so we're going to talk about these guys before you knew their names. Guy was a Tacoma guy. Ron Say was on there. So, all right, Eric, we're just going to jump in. Welcome back.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be with you again.
And that was supposed to be a nice, tight intro, and I just, I can't do it, man. I can't. So, for people that don't know you, which is probably most everybody in the audience, right? I mean, you're not... Being an author and a researcher and a historian is your side hustle, I guess, your hobby. You're a full-time medical professional.
Correct.
And you live in Port Townsend. And you work in Seattle. I'm not seeing where you get time to write, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Where do you find the time to do this? Because what I'm looking at is this is your third book in 3 years, man.
That's right. Yeah.
You're consistent.
Yeah. I work hard at it. And I will say that my job kind of allows for that. I work 12-hour shifts in Seattle, and I work also partly remote.
Okay.
Living in Port Townsend. So I have at least 2 or 3 days a week where I'm usually not working. And those days I usually devote to researching and writing. Okay.
And I'm putting you on the spot with this question, which you're going to hear that a lot from me this episode probably, but walk us through the conversation that in my mind went something like this. Hey, honey, I think I want to write another book. How's your wife with all of this? Does she like this? Does she think this is cool too?
She's very supportive of the process. I think the hard part, after Season of Shattered Dreams, I tried doing a lot of events and went to Spokane, went to Portland, Bellingham, a lot of different places to try and promote the book, and that was a difficult time for sure. We had a passing in the family around that time. Our dog was sick, so that was certainly added some stress. But as far as the researching and writing, I do it on my days off when she's at work. Okay. We still have our time at night where we sit on the couch and watch TV together or whatever. So it's a good balance.
Is your wife a baseball fan?
She's a huge baseball fan, and that helps as well.
That helps a lot. All right. Okay. So what's her favorite team?
The Cardinals. Although, I should preface that.
Eric.
She might say the Mariners now, because we both grew up in Illinois, big Cardinal fans, and we moved to Washington State 11 years ago, and we've definitely gradually become drifted toward the Mariners, just going to a lot of games. And of course, this past season was just so exciting, and love the roster they have now. So I myself might even say I'm a bigger Mariners fan than Cardinals fan at this point, and she would probably say the same thing.
I'm a Mariners fan, but because my formative baseball years, the Mariners weren't a team, so I couldn't be a fan of a team that didn't exist. But I remember 1995 because I was working in downtown Seattle at that time, and about August, the vibe of the city changed because there was this chance that the Mariners, the horrible, hapless Seattle Mariners might make it to the playoffs. Oh my gosh. And the whole city kind of had this vibe about it. I'm going to say, I think the 2025 Seattle Mariners season was the best season in Mariners history for lots of reasons, but I think they finally have put together the most complete roster from the superstars to the last guy on the bench. I think this team is that team, because we don't know what we don't know next year's team yet, but yeah. I think this team was the best season they've ever had, and I'm not really disappointed that they didn't go to the World Series. I mean, yes, but this was a great team. It was a fun team to watch. It was a complete team, and how can you not be a Mariners fan if you're exposed to it like that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and hopefully they'll only get better. They still have most of the roster returning.
Yeah,
these guys are all in their prime.
Yeah. No,
so I'm optimistic.
But see, this will segue nicely because I didn't want them to play against the Dodgers. Because what's the Dodgers payroll and how many billions of dollars have they got committed in future contracts? I mean, they're an economic juggernaut, and the Mariners are not. But back when this book was taking place, yes, the Dodgers were still financially well off. They've always been a financially strong team, even back in Brooklyn and to the Los Angeles days. But you go on, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to. You say something like it's the greatest draft class in history.
Yes.
Defend that.
Yeah, I can do that. Right. So in 1968, the Dodgers drafted 11. They actually drafted 15 future big leaguers. 11 of them signed. Okay. And of those 11, 9 of them played in the big leagues for 10 or more seasons. So that in itself is a draft record. Yeah. Of those 11, they combined for more than 11,000 hits, which is a draft record, more than 1,100 home runs, also a record, and they combined for 234 wins above replacement, or WAR, which is about 40 to 50 wins above replacement better than the next highest draft class.
I didn't think it'd be that easy for you to defend it, but okay. Just out of curiosity. Yeah, I guess so. Just out of curiosity, what is considered the next best draft class?
So there's a few ways to look at it. Sure. Some people like to dismiss WAR, or wins above replacement. It's nice because it's just a single statistic that you can look at. Mm-hmm. So if you're just looking at WAR, the next highest is the Red Sox draft class of, I believe it was 83, when they had Clemens and Ellis Burks. And basically those two players alone, Clemens had something like 120 wins above replacement on his own.
Okay.
And then you could also measure it by just number of players who reached the major leagues. The 82 Mets had drafted 17 future big leaguers. So just in terms of the number of future major leaguers, they drafted more, but they weren't as impactful of a class in terms of the talent.
Okay. So in the beginning of the book where you're setting it up, in what we think about in the major league, big league draft, is that we draft these, I'll call them kids. But before that, there wasn't a draft. And so there was scouts going around the country, and they were, sitting down, and not that they're not doing that now, but they were sitting down having lunch, dinners, with families, trying to get, hey, Eric, come on, join the Mariners. We want you to play in Seattle, that type of thing. And Major League Baseball, I'm paraphrasing, but Major League Baseball didn't think that there was a competitive disadvantage to that system, because the teams that had money could afford to hire more scouts. They could pay more bonus money, things like that. So they wanted to put a draft in.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers, in your book, I didn't realize this before, but the Dodgers were at first very against that. I mean, and why not? Because they were winning at the signing of bonus players if they wanted to, right? But then they kind of adapted, and then they very quickly, because this is 4 years after the draft started, right? Okay, so within 4 seasons, they draft what you're calling the greatest draft class of all time, which with every year that goes by, this draft class still holds up, right? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, okay, so if this was 1972, that the best draft class ever, well, it's only been 7 years, a big deal. But now after all these years, okay, what behind the scenes? Why do you think the Dodgers were so successful at changing strategies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, prior to the institution of the draft in '65, they were, for the previous 2 decades, they had signed Sandy Koufax, Roberto Clemente. Originally going back to the 40s, integrated the game, of course, with Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella. Then they signed Don Drysdale and Don Sutton, all these future Hall of Famers when it was kind of this free-for-all. And part of that was they had just really good scouts. They were experienced group of scouts. Walter O'Malley had pretty deep pockets, so that certainly helped. Yeah, and the Dodgers were very much against the draft for good reason. They were very successful in the 50s and early 60s with the status quo. So they were one of the teams that voted against the draft. And in the first 3 years of the draft, they didn't do too well. In '65, they really didn't draft any future big league players. In '66, they got a little lucky with a couple of later round picks, Charlie Huff, who really only made the major leagues because he learned the knuckleball.
Right.
And then Bill Russell was another kind of later round pick from that draft. In '67, they got a couple future big leaguers, Steve Yeager, Vaughn Joshua, but very underwhelming draft class. So, and around this time, Sandy Koufax had retired. He retired after the '66 season, and he virtually carried that team to the World Series in '66. He had that phenomenal season. Of course, the Dodgers got swept by the Orioles in the World Series. Koufax announces his surprise retirement after that season. And the Dodgers go from winning 95 games in '66 to winning 73 in '67. And that part of that was because their offense was just really weak. They hit something like 236 in '67. They barely scored 3 runs a game. They were, among the lower teams in the league at scoring runs. So they were, didn't have this influx of talent coming because of these poor drafts. Koufax retires, their offense is struggling. And so the scouting director, Al Campanis, and the general manager, Buzzy Vivasi, and then Fresco Thompson, realized they needed to really boost the offense. So they kind of went all in on offense. The other thing they did ahead of that '68 draft was Al Campanis met with some NFL scouts, and because the NFL had a draft for years, so he sought out this guy named Al Locasal and got advice from him. What are you doing? How do you evaluate players? So he learned a lot about just how to evaluate talent and how to go for the best athletes rather than drafting based on position. And that sort of shift in strategy is, I think, what really helped them with this enormous haul in '68.
And Lasorda was a scout then as well. I mean, in the earlier '60s. Correct?
Yes, yeah. Okay. He became a scout after he retired as a player in '61.
And what I know of Lasorda is when he's the manager of the Dodgers. Okay, so anything pre-managing the Dodgers is not, it's news to me. And I'm reading that he was kind of a character.
To say the least.
Yeah, kind of a character. And there was some reservations in the Dodgers organization about making him a manager because they were kind of afraid his rough and tumble, maybe is a polite way of saying it, rough and tumble persona would negatively impact talent. Well, that proved to not be the case. I mean, okay. Yeah. But Do you know, did Lasorda have any input to this draft in 68? Do we know this, or, what? Yeah. How do you think the 68 draft was put together? How did it come about?
Mm-hmm. So the Dodgers employed about 20 full-time scouts in 68. At that time, Lasorda was a rookie league manager. Okay. He started managing in the rookie league in 65. So these are guys who were, basically just out of high school. Mm-hmm. He did that for 4 years. He was still doing a little bit of scouting in 68, but he wasn't one of the full-time scouts. They had this group of guys, most of their names they're pretty anonymous guys. And I do go into some of that in the book. I thought they deserved credit. Guys who had been scouts for decades, who really no one knows about. Leon Hamilton, Guy Wellman, Bill Brenzel. These are all guys who scouted the guys like Ron Say, Bobby Valentine, Davey Lopes, Bill Buckner, submitted their reports to Al Campanis. They would kind of come up with a list of their top players based on these rankings, and they kind of learned this ranking system from Aldo Casal, the football executive. So they put all this together and came up with their draft list. And at the top of that list was Bobby Valentine, was their top choice heading into the 68 draft, followed by Bill Buckner. And they managed to get both of those players with their first two picks.
And you mentioned in the book that Buckner wasn't too happy about not being drafted in the first round.
Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah. So let's jump into the Spokane season. In 70. So Lasorda had probably been a manager for 5 years at that time. So he wasn't a well-seasoned manager. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. He managed in the rookie leagues for 4 years and then was promoted to Spokane in 69 and had a losing season actually in his first season.
Okay.
In Spokane.
Now Spokane was a AAA franchise. That's the wrong word, but AAA. So if you're not a baseball fan, that's basically one step below the minor leagues. It's where back then probably your best players were playing. Nowadays maybe it's AA, depending on what you're trying to do with the player. But AAA was where your big prospects were probably playing. These were teams that I think you might be willing to make the argument that this 1970 Spokane Indians could have held their own against most of the Major League Baseball clubs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, no, they probably weren't going to win. They weren't going to be a playoff team in the major leagues, but they could have certainly held their own against, especially like the lower division major league teams. Do you know why the Dodgers had their AAA club in Spokane versus somewhere, closer to Los Angeles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles in 58, I believe it was 58, they needed to basically establish a AAA club. Walter O'Malley had owned the Los Angeles Angels. So they talked about putting a team in Long Beach, but some people thought that was too close to LA. And so they were kind of taking bids from other cities.
I'm laughing. Have you been in LA traffic? That's not too close, man. That's
good point. Yeah, that can be a couple hours away on
exactly
a good day.
All right. So so they were taking bids from other sorry.
Yeah. So Spokane submitted a bid. Prior to that, Spokane had been like a lower class in terms of like the ranking of minor league teams, like a Class A, Class B franchise since the early 1900s. But they submitted a bid and got the approval to the funds to build a new stadium and ultimately landed the Dodgers affiliation as their AAA franchise. Okay.
So we're just going to skip over Ogden and all that because that's not Washington related. We're just going to try to keep this to Spokane. We got to talk about Dodgers anyway, but you get the idea, Spokane. So walk us through, you're calling them the greatest draft class, but the 1970 Spokane Indians won the PCL championship against, at that time was a pretty good franchise, the Hawaii Islanders. They were always a pretty strong AAA club in that era. How do I want to put this? So it was a good draft class, great draft class. I mean, ultimately it turned out to be a great draft class, but at this point we still don't know where these guys are how they're going to shake out, right? When injuries, trades, just, failure to develop beyond a certain plateau. What sort of impact do you think Lasorda had to the success of this draft class?
I think he was very impactful in a few different ways. He was the ultimate motivator. He had a way of convincing his players that they were better than they actually were. And he was carried around these self-help books of, promoting himself and promoting just positivity. He told his players they were going to get their mail someday at Dodger Stadium. He constantly said, you got to believe. You got to believe. That was his mantra. So he just instilled this tremendous confidence in his players. And it was a confidence that he had in himself. He was not a very talented pitcher, but somehow he reached the major leagues despite having kind of below average ability. And his other strength was that he was really good at recognizing players' potential. And I think this kind of goes back to his years of scouting. The 70 Spokane Indians had an outfielder. Their fifth outfielder was Davey Lopes on that team, future Major League All-Star. But at the time, Davey Lopes was, not necessarily thought of as this highly touted prospect. He was, kind of a backup outfielder. Lasorda ultimately saw that Davey Lopes could be better utilized as a second baseman. Rather than maybe an average hitting outfielder, he was an above average second baseman. So he worked with him on transitioning to second base. And he did the same with Bill Russell, turned him from an outfielder into an infielder. And of course, Russell and Lopes, along with Ron Say and Steve Garvey, ended up forming an infield that played together for 8 seasons in Los Angeles and won 4 pennants. So Lasorda had that eye to sort of see the future. So I think those are some of the ways that he helped those prospects.
One of the anecdotes you share, and I'll butcher it, but I thought I chuckled when I read this. Tom Paciorek, they would get together and they would bowl. Lasorda, Paciorek, and it was almost Paciorek and Lasorda would bowl against a couple of the other players, and basically the losers would buy beer. And Paciorek is involved in a collision and on the base paths, and Lasorda comes running over and asks him if he's hurt, and basically, oh good, I thought you hurt your bowling hand or something. I mean, it was just like this kind of like making light of it in a I don't know, there's something I read that and I just chuckled. Like that's a guy who's connecting to his players
for sure.
And maybe we don't do that these days because of the dollar signs attached to these guys, unfortunately. Not that there wasn't big dollars attached to them back then, but now.
Yeah. And I think Lasorda broke the mold in that way. A lot of his players told me that, the kind of the culture in baseball before that was that managers would be very standoffish. They would not go out bowling or out to dinner with their players. And Lasorda sort of broke down those barriers, ate dinner every day with his players, took them out for extra batting practice, and became more of a friend or father figure to them.
Yeah, no, that was that antidote. And then the one about the having the bus driver pull the team bus over and go in and say they've got a bus full of hungry players, and we'll stop here if you let us eat for free type thing. And I was like, yeah, I can see that. That's a pretty good story. I don't think that's any different what fast food places on the side of the highway do to now. They go, the bus driver eats free, stop here. Anyway. So they had this great season in 70. And spoiler alert, that's about where I'm at in the book. So, I'm going to stop having antidotes at this point of what I've observed of the book. But let's talk about that 70 season, because some of these guys had, only been professionals now for 2 years, which is a pretty fast rise. And to go on and have this very dominant AAA season. how many of them were pulled up from AAA and made the Dodgers roster in 71?
A lot of them made brief appearances with the 71 Dodgers. Garvey and Buckner more or less spent most of the 71 season with the big league club. They kind of a lot of them went up and down for a year or two.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I've actually managed to complete the 71 top set.
Oh, cool.
Which, if you're at all familiar, that was when I started collecting baseball cards, was 71. And I'm trying to remember what Dodgers, because I haven't pulled the set out. No, he was like 750 players in the set. It's a brutal set to complete. And I'm trying to remember which Dodgers were in the 71 tops. And I'm not remembering, to be very honest with you. So I want to say,
I'm sure some of those guys probably had rookie cards around that time.
I want to say Garvey's in there, but I don't know. Okay. So what year did Lasorda get called up to the Dodgers to be, he wasn't brought up as the manager initially, but when did he go on to the coaching staff for the big club?
Yeah. So he managed in Spokane in 71. After the 71 season, the Dodgers moved their AAA affiliate to Albuquerque.
That's
so
right.
He managed in Albuquerque in 72. And in 73, he was promoted to third base coach.
Okay. And that's about when this group of players kind of were playing in LA.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. In 74, the Dodgers reached the World Series. And in fact, 5 of the first 6 hitters in their game 1 lineup were from the 68 draft class.
5 of the first 6? Wow. You should have led with that, or defending the I mean, jeez. Did they draft any pitchers in the draft class that were impactful?
They did. They went really heavy on position players. Right. I think of their first 9 or 10 picks, there were only 1 or 2 pitchers. One of them was Doyle Alexander, who won about 190 games in the leagues. And Jeff Zahn was another who won 100 games or so. But actually, probably the best pitcher of that class was a guy named Sandy Vance, who had a really good rookie season with the Dodgers in 70. He got called up midway through that season. He was a kind of a star pitcher out of Stanford, but he injured his arm the next season. So he would have been the best pitcher out of that class. And it was a lot of fun to interview Sandy for this book. He gave me some great stories.
So how many of these guys have you interviewed? Were you able to sit down and have interviews, or not necessarily sit down, but how many of them did you interview?
Yeah, I interviewed 11 members of the 1970 Spokane Indians, including Bobby Valentine, who's a terrific storyteller, a guy who's used to dealing with media, telling stories. And he, in a way, kind of adopted the personality of Tommy Lasorda. He was kind of a natural extrovert, but kind of adopted some of Lasorda's philosophies as a manager himself. I talked to Tom Paciorek, great sense of humor, very kind of dry wit. Tommy Hutton from that team, who's now a Miami Marlins broadcaster. Charlie Huff, who was actually the team's closer, interestingly. I found that a bit surprising that they had a knuckleball or
what could go wrong?
Yeah, he was amazing that year. Charlie Huff was going to be out of it. He had came out of the 66 draft class and really had peaked in AA and was on his way out of baseball. And then before the 70 season, one of the Dodgers scouts, Goldie Holt, told him he should try learning the knuckleball. So he tried throwing it one day, and he just picked it up within a few minutes. He was throwing this unbelievable kind of fluttering knuckleball. And that 70 season with Spokane is the first time that he actually used it in games, and he was just unbelievable, and ended up getting called up to the Dodgers late that season.
Any antidotes through the interviews that were on the cutting room floor, if you will, that didn't make it into the book that you thought was an interesting tidbit or an aside, but just didn't fit into the narrative of the book?
Oh gosh. Wow. That's a great question. A really sort of fascinating part of the Spokane Indian story was the Hawaii Islanders.
Okay.
Because they were they were a juggernaut of their own. They were the Angels AAA affiliate, but they were considered this sort of co-op team. So they had local ownership in Hawaii, and they had this agreement with the Angels where they could sort of fill their roster with their own players that they signed. So it was like half independently signed players and then half Angels prospects. And so they signed all these former major league players, not necessarily like all-stars, but solid major league players who were like maybe a little bit past their prime, guys in their early 30s. And they were a really good team. And, I just find it fascinating that there was professional baseball in Hawaii, AAA baseball in Hawaii at that time. And a lot of cool stories just from players. It was, of course, their favorite road trip.
Yeah,
just to go.
Come on.
Spending the whole day at the beach, getting sunburned, and then trying to play baseball at night. So
we got to go to Tacoma this week. Great. Oh,
exactly. So the 70 Spokane Indians, they start their season in Salt Lake City in the snow.
Yeah.
And then they fly to Hawaii where they're playing in 80-degree weather, and then they fly to Tacoma and get rained out. So they experience like every season in that first week. But to answer your question, I had so many stories about the Hawaii Islanders. I ended up writing this like 30-page chapter about the Hawaii Islanders. And, as I was kind of editing the book and I had my editor was looking at it, we both agreed there was way too much about the Hawaii Islanders. So we needed to kind of refocus and cut some of that. But a lot of fun stories.
So you're going to turn that into an article, though, the Islander content? Could it be something you could publish with Saber and have?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Do you think Lasorda enjoyed being in Spokane, out of the limelight, if you will? Because, 1970 Spokane wasn't a booming place. No offense to Spokane folks, because 1970 Tacoma wasn't booming either. But, it certainly wasn't Los Angeles. It wasn't New York. And things like that. It was kind of remote, I think is a word I can use. It was remote.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
And, did that lead to more time to work with the players because there was less distractions of a okay, let's be honest. If you're coach of the manager of the Hawaii Islanders, you're competing with the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard draw to get him to come in and do some extra BP, and go run the lines. We're going to the beach, coach. Sorry. Do you think Spokane's remoteness led to building this tight-knit group?
I do. Yeah, that's a good point. I think of my own personal story. I went to college in Peoria, Illinois. Kind of similar town to Spokane. Not a lot to do, not a lot of like nightlife. So I more or less just hunkered down and studied. Whereas if I would have went to college in Hawaii, a lot more distractions. So I think Spokane kind of lent itself to there wasn't much to do. So the players all hung out together. They formed really tight bonds. Lasorda took Valentine and Buckner and Pachorik and Garvey out for morning batting practice every day of home games because there wasn't much else to do. They'd go to maybe a movie at night on their off day, but I think that did help. And Lasorda had come from Pocatello, Idaho, and Ogden, Utah before, so I think in some ways Spokane was certainly a step up in terms of the.
And no, we're not throwing any shade on these communities. Look, comparing Spokane or Pocatello or Tacoma to Honolulu or Phoenix, even back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think there was as many built-in distractions. How's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because one of the things you mentioned was 8 years together. The infield basically played together for 8 seasons. I don't know if you were to go back and look through baseball history, if you could find many other infields that played together that many seasons.
No, I've seen it documented as the longest.
Yeah, I mean,
intact infield.
Yeah, that's surprising. That's actually more than surprising, honestly. The fact that those guys were able to have the longevity. I mean, health wise. I mean, just that alone. That, and they were able to get the business of baseball out of the way, and they all kept signing contracts to continue playing for the team versus being traded off for somebody, getting rid of a bloated contract to get save some money.
Yeah, because free agency came along in '76, so those guys certainly would have had opportunities to go elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And so I wonder, when you interviewed these guys, did they hold Lasorda in pretty high regard?
Yes, I would say not 100%. And in fact, there was one of the players I got in contact with from the 1970s Spokane Indians. Refused to go on record just because he had, let's say, a negative impression of Lasorda.
Interesting. Okay.
In fact, said that he was more of a politician than a manager in his mind.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I mean,
but the other guys, I was the vast majority held him in very high regard, had nothing but great things to say about him. But yeah, he was not everyone's cup of tea for sure. He had this sort of rah-rah mentality, which was, I think, great for younger players. But some of these guys had been in professional baseball for 10 years at that point, and here's this guy with very little major league success coming in with his kind of rah-rah, you can do this mentality, and not everyone kind of drank that Kool-Aid.
Okay. But if we look back on his managerial career in the big leagues, he was a very successful. I don't know what his how many wins did he have in the major leagues?
I'd have to look it up. He's, I think, around 20th on the all-time list.
There's been what? Let's see. I mean, how many? Couple thousand guys have been managers at the big league level. Maybe more. If we don't count, Eric's the manager today because I was suspended. Type thing. Where you're filling in. But how many guys were assigned the job of being the manager of the big league team through all these years?
And to stick with one team for as long as he did, for 20 years was
without and seemingly, I mean, he bled Dodger blue.
He did,
and
even back when he was a player, he bled Dodger blue. Very, very loyal. He had opportunities to go elsewhere when he was a third base coach. The Montreal Expos offered him a much more lucrative contract to manage, but he kind of stuck it out, assumed that Peter O'Malley, who was by then the Dodgers president, would promote him eventually to replace Walter Alston.
Right. I'm just laughing. Montreal? I mean, really?
No. Well, that's where Lasorda had his most success as a player. He spent, I think, 9 seasons in Montreal, which is a Dodgers AAA affiliate back in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
So he had some ties there, and
well, maybe that's why he said no. He remembered what it was like. Now, if Hawaii came calling, maybe he was, maybe I'll go manage the Islanders. What the heck? All right. So let's talk about you putting this book together. How long do you think? Well, let's go this. When did you come up with the idea that you wanted to put this book together?
Yeah. So it was really when I was researching my last book about the 1946 Spokane Indians. That's kind of when I learned about the 70 team. So I thought that be something interesting to write about. So I kind of put that in the back of my mind, and uh, as after my last book had come out, I was kind of looking for another project and had this idea floating in the back of my mind, and started to put an outline together a couple months after my last book came out, and that's when I really decided to dive into it. Started doing the research, started doing interviews, reaching out to as many people as I can affiliated with the Spokane Indians. And in fact, I some of my best stories from the book come from like the bat boy, clubhouse boy, concessions manager in Spokane. Even a few fans gave me some anecdotes. So
Really?
I really,
Well, come on, share with me the concession guy. What did the concession? I mean, let's talk about Spokane Indians concessions.
yeah. So it was a guy named Dorian Chastain, and I found his name in the Spokane Indians program from that year.
Okay.
So I go, well, let me reach out to this guy and see if he has any stories. And sure enough, he did. He says that one day a couple of the bat boys were kind of picking on another female vendor. So he goes over and kind of shoves one of the bat boys, and Lasorda sees this. And he comes over and kind of reams out Dorian, the concessions guy, and said, "You keep your hands off my bat boys. What are you doing?" And he said he gave him a piece of advice that stuck with him for the rest of his life. He said, "Whenever you're angry or upset about something, put your hands in your back pockets. That way you're less likely to punch somebody or shove somebody when you shouldn't." And so Dorian said that he's carried that with him for the rest of his life. Anytime he's angry, he puts his hands in his back pockets, and it keeps him from doing something he might regret.
At this point, I'm going to call Tommy Lasorda a hypocrite because he was really known for not keeping his hands in his back pockets. I mean, come on.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think he could have maybe used his own advice.
Lasorda was okay. Anyway, all right. So, yeah, but I'm going to defend the concession guy. He saw the bat boys doing something that they shouldn't have been doing. Maybe he shouldn't have shoved the kid, but come on, he was stepping in to intervene. So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, what else did we learn? Like, what about the fans from Spokane? What were their memories of that season?
A couple of them told me just how generous the players were with giving autographs.
Okay.
They were really, really fan friendly. They would sign autographs for any kid who asked for one. They would put on clinics, baseball clinics for kids in the community, sign autographs for everybody. And Lasorda was a big proponent of this. He really encouraged his players to sign autographs. There's a story in the book about Lasorda getting snubbed as a kid. So he always told his players, sign autographs for any kid who asks. Otherwise, they're going to go the rest of your life thinking you're a jerk.
But let me interrupt you now. In the book, I want you to tell the story about how Lasorda used autographs against the players.
Yeah. So look, Lasorda, that's one of the first things he did when players in rookie ball, these are guys who were just out of high school, college. One of the first things he told them, sign autographs for any kid who asks. And so they kind of stuck to that advice. And Lasorda used that against them. He found that some of his players were sneaking out and breaking curfew. So he came up with this ingenious plan. He had this elderly guy who worked at the team hotel in Ogden. He would ask players for their autographs when they came in at night after midnight. And then each morning, the clubhouse boy would collect the ball from this hotel employee, and it would have the names of all the guys who broke curfew. And then they'd get to the ballpark the next day, and they'd be levied fines for breaking curfew.
That was genius. I loved that. That was genius. What I want to know, what you didn't share, you probably don't know, but what I want to know is, were there repeat offenders, or did they figure this out? Like, if you ask me, I'm not going to sign anything. I don't know. I thought that was a brilliant story. I chuckled when I read that.
Yeah. So I actually interviewed the clubhouse boy for Ogden, Zach Manazian, whose sons are general managers now of the Angels and Giants.
Oh, wow.
So he was actually the clubhouse boy for the Ogden Dodgers as a 14-year-old in 1968.
Wow.
So he had some great stories about Lasorda.
Well, what did you say about Lasorda back then in Ogden? Well, we can talk about Ogden right now, I guess. It's okay.
Yeah, one thing that stuck out to me was just the guy that everyone saw in commercials and at Dodger Stadium in the 70s and 80s. Lasorda was the same guy back in rookie leagues and in tiny Pocatello and Ogden. He was this just full of energy guy, dancing in the third base coaching box. This was when minor league managers were also third base coach. So he'd be like just dancing and singing and hollering and the third base coach. And then, just kind of being like this father figure to the team on road trips, regaling them with stories from his major league career. He was a tremendous storyteller. He repeated a lot of these stories over and over again. So I think a lot of his players over time are like, oh God, that story again.
One of the things you open the book with, and I can't remember the player's name, but this was when Lasorda was a coach. And he ended up at a funeral or memorial.
Willie Crawford was the player.
And ended up at the minister, preacher, whatever, who was up, said we have a notable person in the audience or something and then Lasorda got up and did a cold eulogy and I think it would have been pretty interesting to be in the room with him. I really do. I think he would have been a personality that would have been I don't know that there'd be, well, maybe he started repeating himself, it'd get dull, but I think at least the first round of hearing his stories would have been pretty fascinating for everybody,
no doubt.
For me.
Yeah. And he really honed his skills. He became a renowned public speaker, spoke at the White House and to all these Fortune 500 companies, but he really honed his speaking skills at like the Kiwanis Club in Spokane and at church banquets in Spokane in the back in 1970.
So the book's coming out on December 7th, which this episode's coming out a little bit after that. So the book will be available. You mentioned earlier promoting it. The first book, or not the first book, your last book, there was, life was complicated at that moment, complicated to promote type thing. What are you going to do this time to promote it? Where can people find out more, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to do a few events. The Spokane Indians were really supportive and have been with my efforts to document their team's history. So they had me out to a game a couple of years ago to do a signing, and I'm hoping to do the same this coming season. And I'll do a signing at Auntie's, which is the independent bookstore in Spokane. So looking forward to that in the spring or summer of 2026. And then I also hope to do an event or two in LA around the start of the season. And I'm doing a talk here in my adopted hometown of Port Townsend in a month or so.
Well, where are you doing the talk at?
At the Port Townsend Public Library.
Okay.
Actually, February 19th. It's a Thursday.
Okay. Well, we're going to come back to Port Townsend, but I want to ask you this: were the were the Los Angeles Dodgers involved at all in this book? What I mean by that, were they helpful? Did they ask you to can we review this before you publish it? How involved, that's not the right word, but where were the Dodgers at in all of this?
Sure. Well, I would say that several people affiliated with the Dodgers were very helpful. Okay. Fred Clare, who is a former Dodgers general manager, I reached out to him with my idea about the book. He was very enthusiastic and supportive, and he actually put me in touch with a few of the kind of the key figures, because I'm not a sports writer. I don't have a Rolodex of major league and I can just pick up and call the phone. So Fred getting me in touch with a few guys was very helpful. The Dodgers team historian is a guy named Mark Langell. He reviewed the manuscript and kind of gave me a few bits of feedback. I sent it to a gentleman who's associated with Peter O'Malley, who's kind of the O'Malley family historian. He manages their website, waltero'malley.com, and he reviewed the manuscript as well. So I tried to get a few people with knowledge of the story and the team to give their inputs. That was really helpful.
And the feedback you received, then obviously the book's coming to press, were they complimentary, and were you able to glean any more information? Were they like to go, oh, here's some more stuff that you could maybe add to this section or that? Was that valuable for you?
Yeah, it was. I would say more just maybe fact checking a couple of points here and there. Okay. There were no like major structural changes or anything to the book based on their feedback. It was more of a just getting all the facts straight, dates and times and events and names. Okay. And and then a couple of them provided like blurbs for the book, which was really nice.
I saw the blurbs, and that's one thing I was over here scrolling, trying to look it up. Bob Costas?
Yeah.
How did you obtain Bob Costas to give you? No offense, but like Bob Costas?
Yeah, it's funny story. So Bob and I are both from the St. Louis area,
right?
And I wrote a book about the 1982 Cardinals. That was my first book that I wrote about 5 years ago. And Bob Costas was a young reporter covering the 1982 World Series. That was one of his first assignments. And he's in the book. So I sent him a copy of the book, and I said, hey, you might enjoy this. And about a year later, he calls me and says, hey, sorry it's taking me so long to get back to you. I got the book. It's great. Thanks for sending it. We talked for like 15 minutes. So totally out of the blue. It just blew me away. And so I had Bob's, contact information. And a few months ago, I reached out to him and said, hey, I've got this book coming out. Are you interested in taking a look at it? And he said he would. And I sent him the manuscript, and he replied a few weeks later with a really nice and thoughtful blurb. So
that's awesome, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, how do I want to say this? I think I just thought of Bob Costas as always being, fully baked as an international sports guy, not that he'd been covering as a reporter. I would say, like, I'm aware of Bob Costas because of his TV stuff, right? I never really thought about Bob Costas as being anything but Bob Costas, the sports guy.
Yeah.
Like, so you're telling me he was a reporter. Like, well, that makes sense, but I never thought about it.
Yeah, like a television reporter. He would do like the locker room interviews.
Okay.
During the World Series.
Okay. That's wow. That would be a nice job, wouldn't it? That'd be kind of a fun gig, especially if it's the team you're as a reporter. I guess you can't be too much of a homer, but it'd be kind of, I don't care. It'd be awesome. I'm kidding. It'd be cool. Have you ever been to a World Series game?
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
2011, Game 6. I think it's one of the best games ever played at Major League Baseball. It was the game where the Cardinals came back with 2 outs in the 9th inning, and then David Freese won the game in extra innings with a walk-off home run. Best game I've ever seen in person or on TV, and I happened to be there for it. So.
Yeah, well, I've never been to a World Series game. I hope I get the opportunity, and because I'm kind of holding out for the Mariners to do it. But
2026.
Well,
I'm optimistic.
I've been a Mariners fan for long enough to know that this is not the time of year to be optimistic. August is the month to get enthusiastic. It's just, but I do genuinely think this team is positioned better than it's ever been positioned. And if they get the lucky breaks, they got a legitimate shot of going at least back to the American League Championship Series. And, we'll see. We'll see. So how's life in Port Townsend?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love living here. Yeah.
Okay. Last time we talked, you gave me a couple of, you gave me a coffee place and a lunch place. Any new restaurants? Anything I should know about Port Townsend that has changed since the last time I was there, which has been a couple of years now? What's changed?
Okay.
What's new?
What's changed? Well, I think in some ways that's what makes Port Townsend cool, is that it hasn't changed a whole lot. It's still got that. I think it's had the same vibe for a long time. There's a lot of kind of old retired hippies that live here. So it's kind of got that vibe. It's really popular in the summer, touristy, but I love, winter, rainy days here in the winter when there's hardly anybody out. I can go down to Better Living Through Coffee right on the waterfront, have a latte. That's one of my favorite parts about living here.
Better Living Through Coffee is such a cool name because it's so true for me. But it's such a cool name. So, well, have you gone out? Have you explored Fort Worden? Have you gone out there?
I have. Yeah. I love Fort Worden. I actually volunteer. There's a community radio station here called KPTZ. And it's all volunteer community run. And so I'm volunteering there. So I record a community calendar weekly for them. And I host my own, as of a couple of weeks ago, I started doing this host my own music show on Wednesday nights. Yeah.
So let's forget baseball. Let's talk about music for a second. What's going on? Walk me through your show. What's going on there?
Yeah. So the show is called Jam Sandwich.
Okay.
And I play a lot of jam bands.
Yeah.
I'm big into like Dave Matthews Band, Fish, Grateful Dead, Goose. So I play a lot of their stuff. I also mix in, I like a lot of Pacific Northwest artists, Death Cab for Cutie, Brandy Carlisle, mixed in some older stuff too, some Beatles. Try to mix it up.
So are you playing Government Mule? Are you doing any String Cheese Incident? I mean, you kind of name. I mean, when you name drop the Dead and Fish, I mean, okay. I mean, did you ever get to see the Dead?
I did not. No, unfortunately.
Yeah, you missed. Yes, I saw them probably about 80 times.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Well, and then that number is in other configurations of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. Did you see them with John Mayer?
I saw them with John Mayer. Mm-hmm. Yep. I saw him with Mayer.
How did they sound with him compared to their kind of former lineup?
Well, so nobody can replace Jerry Garcia. Okay. So any variation of the band without Jerry is not going to compare for me personally. But they were amazing with Mayer. John Mayer brings a lot of very creative musicianship to the stage with them. Yeah.
Okay.
I hate to say it. I don't hate to say it. I'm embarrassed. I really am a John Mayer fan. I not just for the Dead, just his music in general, and just I think he's a brilliant guitar player.
He is, absolutely.
Yeah, and I saw him in 2015. We went to all three of the last shows in Chicago when Trey Anastasio was playing guitar with him, and that was cool. I mean, when there's 84,000 people there, I mean, it was pretty cool. But nobody could touch Jerry as far as I'm concerned. Jerry is, for me personally, he's on my Mount Rushmore of guitar players and musicians. But you're doing jam bands. That's actually, can this be listened to online?
Yeah, you can stream it on kptz.org.
Very cool.
Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8.
Okay. Are you doing this live or are you recording it?
It's live. Yeah.
Live.
Yeah.
So walk me I'm jealous, man. You get to do a radio show. That's so cool. So walk me through, how are you picking? Well, we're recording this on a Thursday, so let's talk about yesterday's show. Okay. Mm-hmm. Who'd you play yesterday?
All right. Well, I started off with I did. I started off with Three Marlenas by the Wallflowers.
Great song. Great band. Just
Two Step.
Saw them a couple months ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
Two Step by the Dave Matthews Band.
Okay.
And then One Love by Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Yeah.
So I did 3, 2, 1 to start with, and I did Backwards Down the Number Line by Fish was my fourth song.
Solid.
A little play on words there.
I like this.
And then, what else today? I'd have to pull up my playlist. And
so have you ever done a radio show before?
No, and I literally just started doing this like 2 weeks ago, so I'm still pretty new.
That's
new to
cool,
this.
man. I'm so envious of you. That is super cool. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun to put together the playlist, and then just sitting there in the studio listening to it. It's a lot of fun. Blast.
Yeah. So you're doing that every Wednesday. That's all right. I know this won't be your last book, so I know we'll probably, especially if you do anything Washington State related, I'd love to have you back on the show, but I'd love to have you come back on the show now in a few months and talk to me about your radio show, because I think community radio is I think it fills a gap that's commercial radios, I'm not a big fan. So I love the independent nature of these things and community radio stations. I think it's so cool. We could have led this whole episode could have been about that, man. I mean, and I love baseball, so you pick jam bands of baseball, you've nailed it. Add coffee, and I'm in forever. That's so cool. So you never saw the Grateful Dead. Did you see Dead and Company? Did you see with Mayer?
I didn't. I had the opportunity to about 5 years ago. I was in San Francisco for New Year's Eve, and they were playing a New Year's Eve show. Yeah. And I was there with my in-laws, and we decided to do this a jazz concert with Maceo Parker, which was really cool.
It'd be very cool too, but yeah.
But I definitely regret not seeing the.
Here's my advice to you. We'll close with this advice, okay? When they play the Sphere again in Vegas, you just need to go down there. I'm not a fan of Vegas. I haven't been to the Sphere yet, and I'm regretting not seeing them at the Sphere. Rumor has it they're going to do another, series of shows. Everybody that I've had a conversation with that's been to the Sphere for any band has come away with glowing positivity. Like it's a cool venue. It's a venue. And the videos that I've seen of Dead and Company at the Sphere, it will be a multimedia extravaganza. Just go experience it.
All right, you don't have to twist my arm.
Yeah, Vegas is easy to get to, and you just go see the show and leave Vegas. I mean, or stay in Vegas if you want. I don't care, but I'm not a Vegas fan.
Yeah, I guess they won't have Major League Baseball this year, but one of these.
Well, they don't have pro football right now either. Oh, sorry, that was a dig. Well, so where can people find you online? Where can people find out more about your book and your past work? Because that Spokane Indians tragic story is, that's a very, very well written book, by the way. I think when we talked before, I hadn't finished that book. I did finish it. It's tragic. It's a horrible story in the sense, but you present it very, very well. I'm looking forward to finishing up this one, which I'll probably finish it up today. So where can people find more about you, and where should they buy the book?
Yeah, so I do have a website. It's just my name, ericvickrey.com, Vickrey. Okay. And I post some, now and then I'll have some blog posts about all baseball related stuff, and then information about my books there. My publisher for this book is August Publications. It's a small press out of Minneapolis. They've been great to work with. They publish just all sports books.
Okay.
So kind of specialized.
That's kind of a cool niche.
Yeah. Yeah. So my editor there, Kevin, very knowledgeable baseball guy, has been putting out a spring training guide for years and years. So Been a lot of fun to work with him. So you can buy my book directly from August Publications. It's also going to be anywhere you can find books online. Of course, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and then a few select independent bookstores in Washington State are going to carry it, including Auntie's in Spokane. I know Paper Boat in West Seattle is going to have it, and hopefully a few others.
Well, and what's the? I can't think of the name of the bookstore in Port Townsend. What's the?
Oh God. Imprint.
Yeah, I mean, you should go camp out on the doorstep and say you need to carry. I'm a local author. You need to carry my book. That's guerrilla marketing. You just go camp out. So, well, Eric, thank you. It's an excellent book. From what the parts, and full disclosure, I haven't completed it, but what I've read, I want to complete it. Like, it's so good. It's really enjoyable. You're a great writer. You tell a very good story. Lasorda just seems, like I said, like he seems like somebody who I want to sit and eat a plate of pasta with. And I look forward to hearing more about your journey as you go.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to write these books, and I put a lot of work into it. But yeah, it's very rewarding, and yeah, I'd love to come on and talk to you about future projects and maybe a jam sandwich.
I love that idea, man. All right, thanks a lot.
All right, take care, Scott.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreLawState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.